It was an ordinary morning in Portland, Oregon. Birds chirped, the sun rose over tree-lined streets, and a young boy's laughter echoed through a suburban home. But what began as a normal day for one family would soon spiral into a nightmare that no parent could imagine. Stay tuned as we uncover the story of Kyron Horman, a story that begins with innocence and ends in mystery. And before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more in-depth true crime storytelling. Meet Kyron Horman, a bright, energetic 7-year-old with an insatiable curiosity and a love for science. On this particular morning in June 2010, Kyron's excitement was palpable. Today wasn't just any school day, it was the day of Skyline Elementary's annual science fair, an event he had been anticipating for weeks. Like many kids his age, Kyron had a routine. He woke early, ate a quick breakfast, and double-checked his project supplies. To him, the science fair was more than a school assignment. It was a chance to shine, to show off experiments he had spent hours preparing. His mother watched with pride as Kyron meticulously arranged his model volcano, ensuring every detail was perfect. Kyron's family described him as a bright, outgoing child with a cheerful disposition. He had friends, loved science, and could spend hours experimenting with simple projects in the backyard. On this morning, there was laughter, conversation, and the usual gentle chaos that comes with getting a child ready for school. But underneath the calm, there was a sense of anticipation, not just for Kyron, but for everyone attending the science fair that day. By mid-morning, the Hormans arrived at Skyline Elementary. The school buzzed with excitement. Parents carried cameras, students rushed from classroom to classroom, and teachers guided participants to their assigned booths. The gymnasium and hallways were adorned with colorful posters, balloons, and banners celebrating young scientific talent. Kyron was thrilled. He weaved through the crowd of students, carefully carrying his project to its display table. Each step echoed with confidence. Each glance at his neatly labeled experiment board reflected pride and dedication. To anyone watching, it was just another ordinary school morning, a young boy excited to share his work. But in the hours to come, that ordinary morning would take a chilling turn. He carefully set up his model, placing cards that explained the chemical reactions, the formation of lava, and the principles behind his demonstration. Teachers offered guidance, students chatted about their own projects, and parents snapped photographs. There was a sense of normalcy, a rhythm that many families experience at school events. It was a day of pride, creativity, and curiosity, a day that seemed perfectly ordinary in every sense. Kyron's energy was infectious. Other students gravitated toward his display, eager to watch his experiment and ask questions. The gymnasium filled with laughter and chatter, punctuated by the occasional cheer as one project erupted in chemical fizz or a miniature robot moved across a table. Teachers walked the rows, observing, grading, and encouraging. Parents mingled, exchanging compliments and capturing memories and snapshots. It was, in every way, the quintessential school fair, a celebration of learning, curiosity, and youthful enthusiasm. While the day seemed ordinary, there was a subtle undertone of tension, a whisper that something was about to disrupt this carefully constructed normalcy. Kyron's mother noticed it first, a fleeting glance, a sense that time was slipping too quickly, that something wasn't quite right. But in the midst of so much excitement, such instincts can be easily dismissed. After all, it was just a science fair, a day filled with laughter and bright-eyed children. As Kyron continued preparing his display, other students began showcasing their own projects. There were erupting volcanoes, paper rockets, solar-powered cars, and handwritten charts explaining complex phenomena in the simplest terms. Judges moved from table to table, taking notes, asking questions, and nodding approvingly. The air was thick with anticipation. Every child was eager to impress, every parent proud, and every teacher observant. Yet beneath the festive atmosphere, an invisible tension lingered, a tension that would soon escalate into fear. Kyron walked proudly to his booth, set down his project, and stepped back to admire his work. He was a typical 7-year-old, excited, nervous, and confident all at once. His smile was bright, his laughter genuine, and his curiosity boundless. But the normality of the morning was fragile. delicate, and fleeting. The cheerful chaos of the science fair hid an unsettling truth, that within hours, the laughter would fade, the chatter would cease, and the unthinkable would happen. At this moment, no one could predict that a child's ordinary day would vanish into uncertainty. No one could foresee that Skyline Elementary, this familiar and safe environment, would soon become the center of a nationwide mystery. And yet the signs were subtle, almost invisible, glances, movements, and interruptions that seemed insignificant, yet collectively foreshadowed a day that would end in questions without answers. The science fair officially began. Teachers gave announcements, students showcased their projects, and the room buzzed with energy. Parents wandered between booths, offering encouragement and capturing the moment on their phones. Kyron, proud of his efforts, shared explanations about chemical reactions and geological phenomena. He laughed with friends, answered questions confidently, and basked in the joy of learning. Everything appeared normal, routine, even idyllic. And yet, the ordinary can sometimes mask the extraordinary, or the tragic. This was a morning of triumphs, a showcase of curiosity, and a celebration of youth. But it was also the calm before a storm, a day that would shift from ordinary to alarming in an instant. What seemed like a routine school event would soon become the starting point of one of Oregon's most perplexing mysteries. The disappearance of Kyron Horman would leave a family, a school, and a nation searching for answers that remain elusive to this day. As we follow the events of that fateful day, we'll explore how a normal morning transformed into a haunting mystery. In the next part of our story, we'll witness the moment Kyron vanished, the panic that erupted, and the frantic search that followed. But for now, remember the image of a bright, curious boy, standing confidently beside his project, unaware that his ordinary day was about to change forever. Join us in Part 2, where the unimaginable happens, and the search for Kyron begins. Stay tuned, because this story is far from over, and the answers remain shrouded in mystery. It was just another moment at Skyline Elementary's science fair. Students laughed, experiments fizzed and rolled, and the room was alive with energy. But in an instant, the ordinary day took a terrifying turn. A child was missing, vanished without a trace. What happened that morning would leave a family in anguish and a community searching for answers. Stay tuned as we uncover the events surrounding the disappearance of Kyron Horman. Make sure to subscribe to this channel to follow the full story. Kyron Horman, 7 years old, had been the picture of excitement and pride. He carefully demonstrated his project, explaining how the volcano erupted and how the chemical reaction worked. Students crowded around, asking questions, impressed by his knowledge and confidence. Teachers moved among the booths, checking projects, guiding students, and keeping the day organized. Everything seemed normal. But then, the first sign that something was wrong appeared. Teachers began noticing that a student who had been at his booth moments ago was nowhere to be seen. A glance around the room revealed empty spaces that had been filled just seconds before. Teachers asked around. Where was Kyron? He had been right here a moment ago. His project was still set up, untouched, but the boy himself had disappeared. Confusion rippled through the room. Was he just at the bathroom? Did someone take him outside for a moment? Voices grew urgent. Students were asked if they had seen him. Teachers called out Kyron's name again and again. The cheerful hum of the science fair was replaced with a tension that sliced through the air. The more they searched the hallways, the more apparent it became. Kyron was nowhere to be found. Panic began to spread. Children, initially excited and energetic, started whispering to one another. Parents noticed the teacher's urgency and moved closer, scanning the gym for their children. What had started as a routine school day was now becoming a scene of mounting anxiety. Kyron's mother was among the first to realize something was wrong. She had been walking through the gym, ensuring her son had set up his project correctly. But when she looked for him again, he was gone. She asked the teacher what had happened, but even the staff were unsure. Questions raced through her mind. How could he disappear in a room full of students and adults? Authorities were called. The school principal immediately alerted the police. Staff began organizing a systematic search, starting with every classroom, hallway, and restroom. Outside areas were checked, including the playground and parking lot. Volunteers from the community would soon join the search, but those first crucial minutes were filled with uncertainty. When the police arrived, they were met with a scene of chaos. Staff and parents described the last time they had seen Kyron, recounting the details of his morning with careful precision. They explained that he had been excited, lively, and focused on his science project. But now, he was gone. Every second mattered. The initial search involved checking every possible exit and entry point. Officers secured the school, questioned students, and interviewed staff. Some children reported seeing Kyron talking to a friend moments earlier. Others didn't notice anything unusual. Conflicting statements made the search more complicated, and the tension among parents and teachers continued to mount. As the search extended beyond the school, volunteers from the community began to gather. Neighbors joined in, canvassing streets, calling local businesses, and scanning nearby parks. The local news began covering the disappearance, sending reporters to the scene. Every passing minute heightened the sense of urgency. Questions hung in the air. How could a child simply vanish in a crowded environment? Law enforcement expanded the search to include nearby wooded areas, empty lots, and rivers. Helicopters hovered overhead, scanning the landscape, while K-9 units followed every lead. Despite the resources, every effort yielded no trace of Kyron. The community watched anxiously as the hours passed, each one stretching longer than the last. Back at the school, parents gathered, sharing details of what their children had seen, hoping someone had a clue. Teachers tried to keep the younger students calm, explaining that everyone was helping to find Kyron, but even their reassurances could not erase the fear that had settled over the building. The search continued into the afternoon. Police established checkpoints, recorded witness statements, and reviewed security footage from the school. Every detail mattered, from the timing of Kyron's arrival to the exact sequence of events leading up to his disappearance. Investigators knew that the first hours were critical in a case like this, and every second counted. Even as the search intensified, the question haunted everyone: how could a 7-year-old disappear so completely in a school filled with adults and children? The answers were not immediately clear, and the uncertainty fueled fear, suspicion, and heartbreak. Word of Kyron's disappearance spread quickly. Neighbors, friends, and local residents shared updates and photographs. Social media became a hub for information, tips, and pleas for help. Every lead was investigated, every call taken seriously, but the mystery only deepened. As daylight faded, the reality of the situation settled in. Kyron Horman had vanished. What had started as a joyful day at a school's science fair had turned into a nightmare. Confusion, disbelief, and a growing sense of urgency gripped everyone involved. The search was just beginning, but already it was clear that this was not going to be a typical missing child case. The first hours set the tone for a long and difficult investigation. Every detail mattered, every interaction, every movement, every memory from that morning. Yet despite extensive efforts, Kyron remained missing. And for his family, every passing moment was a reminder of the uncertainty and fear that had taken hold of their lives. By the evening, the community came together in hope and support. Candlelight vigils, prayer circles, and memorials began to appear, each one a symbol of the collective desire to find Kyron and bring him home safely. But even in the glow of these gestures, the chilling truth remained: a 7-year-old boy had vanished from his school, and no one knew where he was, or why. In the next part, we will follow the massive search efforts that span neighborhoods, parks, and forests, and explore how law enforcement and volunteers work tirelessly to uncover any trace of Kyron Horman. The mystery deepens, and every lead brings new questions. Stay with us as the search for answers continues. The first night had passed, but Kyron Horman was still missing. What began as frantic searching in hallways and classrooms had expanded into a massive operation spanning neighborhoods, parks, and forests. Every minute mattered. Every lead demanded attention. And across Oregon, A community was mobilizing to find a 7-year-old boy whose disappearance had shaken them to the core. Stay tuned as we follow the hunt for answers. The scale of the search was staggering. Law enforcement officers coordinated with volunteers, neighbors, and family members. Maps were spread across tables, aerial photographs examined, and strategies discussed. Teams were assigned sectors, covering streets, wooded areas, and parks within walking distance of Skyline Elementary. Canvassing was methodical, every detail scrutinized. Volunteers moved carefully through dense forests and open fields, checking every trail, stream, and hidden clearing. Officers questioned anyone nearby who might have seen something unusual. Dogs were deployed, trained to pick up Kyron's scent. Each searcher hoped for a clue, a footprint, a discarded item, anything that could lead them to the missing boy. From above, helicopters scanned the terrain, giving search teams a perspective no one on the ground could achieve. Their powerful spotlights cut through trees, illuminating areas that were impossible to see from the trails below. Pilots coordinated with police, relaying information about potential leads and unusual patterns in the landscape. Every movement, every sound, every signal was analyzed for the slightest hint of Kyron. Information traveled fast. Posters bearing Kyron's photograph and description went up across the city. Community members spoke to neighbors, sharing details about the boy's last known location, the clothes he had been wearing, and his physical characteristics. Flyers were distributed in stores, libraries, and community centers. Social media became a hub for alerts, as residents shared images, tips, and pleas to help locate him. Media attention grew rapidly. Local and national outlets covered the story, broadcasting images of Kyron, detailing the timeline of his disappearance, and calling for any information. Cameras followed search teams, capturing the tireless efforts of volunteers and police. Every broadcast intensified public awareness, and every update brought new tips, yet with each lead came disappointment. For Kyron's family, the ordeal was unbearable. Frustration and despair took hold as they relived the moments leading up to his disappearance over and over in their minds. Each tip that led nowhere renewed their fear. Each passing hour without answers deepened the sense of helplessness. They watched teams search tirelessly, but the absence of clues weighed heavily on them. Neighborhoods were combed systematically. Officers and volunteers went door to door, asking if anyone had seen a child matching Kyron's description. Cars parked on streets were checked, and security cameras examined for potential sightings. Residents became part of the search, offering any information they could, but despite every effort, Kyron remained missing. Command centers operated around the clock. Maps were updated with every reported sighting. Communication was constant, with radios and phones relaying information across teams. Officers coordinated with state agencies, using every tool available to locate the boy. Helicopters, K-9 units, volunteers, and police worked in unison, but the hours stretched on, and the answer remained elusive. Every call into the forest echoed with hope and fear. Volunteers shouted, listened, and waited for any sign. Leaves rustled, birds took flight, and shadows moved through the trees. The uncertainty made each second feel endless. What had happened to Kyron? Where could he be? The questions haunted every searcher, every family member, and every officer on the scene. Law enforcement meticulously documented every tip, every lead, and every search effort. Officers reviewed every piece of evidence, from discarded clothing to school records, in hopes of finding a pattern or clue that could guide them. Despite their expertise and the vast resources at their disposal, the mystery only deepened. Media coverage played a dual role. It helped alert the public and encouraged more tips, but it also amplified the emotional weight of the situation. Families and volunteers saw their own fears reflected in the broadcasts. Questions and theories circulated online, adding pressure and complexity to an already overwhelming search. The story was no longer just about one child, it had become a collective anxiety for the community. Search efforts pushed people to their limits. Volunteers and officers alike endured long hours, harsh terrain, and rising stress. Many skipped meals or rest, driven by a single purpose: to find Kyron. Yet the longer he remained missing, the heavier the weight of despair grew. Each search that ended without results chipped away at hope, but no one stopped trying. For Kyron's parents, every sighting, every call, every reported tip was a roller coaster of hope and disappointment. They clung to the belief that their son could be found, yet the reality of each dead end weighed heavily. Their home became a command center of its own, phones constantly ringing, maps spread across tables, and friends and family offering help and support. Every moment was consumed by the search, every thought dominated by their missing child. The scale of the search was extraordinary. Helicopters scoured the terrain, ground teams covered miles of forests and trails, and volunteers formed human chains across neighborhoods and open fields. Every angle was explored, every possibility considered. It was a massive, coordinated effort, yet Kyron remained elusive, leaving everyone involved frustrated and heartbroken. The community responded with extraordinary support. Flyers and posters multiplied across towns, online campaigns shared images and updates, and neighborhood watch groups joined in the effort. Candlelight vigils and prayer gatherings became common, each event a demonstration of collective hope. Yet the absence of tangible leads created a tension that was impossible to ignore. The search became both a physical and emotional marathon, testing the endurance of everyone involved. Days passed, and search teams expanded their efforts further. Authorities explored new areas suggested by tips, revisited locations previously searched, and continued to analyze every scrap of information. Despite exhaustive efforts, the outcome remained the same. Kyron had vanished, and the mystery persisted. Every unanswered question added weight to the search, deepening frustration and sorrow among his family and the broader community. For Kyron's family, every day was a test of endurance. Each failed lead, each search without results, intensified the anguish. The community's support was vital, yet it could not erase the fundamental uncertainty. Where was Kyron, and why had he disappeared? Those questions remained at the forefront of every search, every report, and every moment of quiet reflection. The search for Kyron Horman revealed the extraordinary efforts of a community united in purpose. It showed the dedication of law enforcement, volunteers, and neighbors working tirelessly against impossible odds. But it also revealed the depth of frustration and despair that comes with an unsolved disappearance. In the next part, we will explore the investigation and the legal fallout. By the time the search had reached its third day, questions outnumbered answers. Kyron Horman was still missing, and law enforcement faced a maze of uncertainty. What had begun as a frantic search now transformed into an intricate investigation, with scrutiny, suspicion, and legal proceedings threatening to overwhelm everyone involved. Stay with us as we explore the tense and complicated journey into the investigation and its lasting impact. Make sure to subscribe to this channel for the full series. Police began methodically questioning everyone connected to Kyron. Family members, teachers, and school staff were interviewed repeatedly, each detail dissected for inconsistencies. Officers asked about Kyron's morning routine, who had last seen him, and the exact sequence of events at the science fair. Every answer, every pause was noted. Even innocent answers were scrutinized. A slight hesitation, a contradictory recollection, or an unexplained detail could raise suspicions. Investigators had to consider all possibilities, from an accidental wandering to the unthinkable. This level of scrutiny put immense pressure on those closest to Kyron. Parents who were already struggling with fear and grief now found themselves under the microscope, facing questions that felt intrusive and relentless. School personnel were also pulled into the investigation. Every staff member's actions that morning were examined. Did anyone see something unusual? Was there a lapse in supervision? Questions lingered like shadows over the school itself. Even mundane details were elevated into critical pieces of evidence. The line between routine oversight and potential culpability became blurred in the minds of investigators and the public alike. Media outlets quickly seized on the story. The disappearance of a 7-year-old in a familiar, suburban school became national news. Speculation ran rampant. Some reports focused on the investigation, others on potential motives, and still others on rumors circulating online. Headlines asked provocative questions. Who was responsible? Could someone at the school be involved? The relentless media coverage intensified pressure on the family and authorities alike. Online forums and social media amplified the scrutiny. Every theory, every observation, and every speculation spread rapidly. While many aimed to help, others fueled fear and suspicion. The combination of public curiosity and sensational reporting created an environment where uncertainty became the only constant. Every lead was dissected, yet every answer seemed to produce more questions. For Kyron's family, the intense focus was both a blessing and a curse. Public attention kept the search alive and brought in new leads, but it also magnified every misstep, every misunderstanding, and every piece of conflicting information. Friends and neighbors offered support, yet even well-intentioned gestures could feel like scrutiny. The balance between hope and despair grew increasingly fragile. As the investigation progressed, legal complications emerged. Court proceedings began over subpoenas, custody-related questions, and access to evidence. Lawyers and investigators debated which information could be made public and which remained confidential. The courtroom became another stage where the disappearance played out, with tension palpable in every exchange. Public statements, carefully crafted and cautious, were read aloud, but behind the official words, fear and frustration ran deep. Authorities compiled an exhaustive record of interviews, search details, and observations. Every interaction was logged. Investigators re-examined timelines, questioned witnesses again, and considered alternative scenarios. Despite the thoroughness of the investigation, certainty remained out of reach. Every answer led to new questions, and the lack of tangible evidence created a cloud of doubt that hung over the case. The public watched closely. News reports highlighted updates from the investigation, noting when new areas were searched or when law enforcement released statements. Yet the emphasis on speculation and theories sometimes overshadowed the facts. Every passing day without a resolution fueled frustration for the family and heightened the tension between law enforcement, media, and the public. Investigators had to navigate carefully between transparency and operational strategy. Sharing too much information could compromise the investigation, yet withholding details invited criticism and suspicion. The delicate balance became a source of ongoing pressure. Every decision about what to disclose or withhold was scrutinized, and mistakes, or perceived mistakes, were magnified in the public eye. When Kyron's parents addressed the media, their words were measured but full of raw emotion. They thanked volunteers, pleaded for tips, and urged anyone with information to come forward. Yet even their statements were analyzed and discussed, often dissected for hidden meanings or inconsistencies. The weight of public attention amplified the pressure they were already under, and the uncertainty about Kyron's fate made every moment unbearably tense. In the aftermath, the school faced scrutiny as well. Policies and supervision procedures were questioned. Administrators cooperated with investigators while trying to reassure parents and the community. Meetings, internal reviews, and public statements became part of the ongoing response, but every action taken was examined for potential negligence or oversight. Legal procedures continued behind the scenes. Subpoenas were issued, statements were filed, and hearings took place to determine what information could be accessed or released. Lawyers debated the boundaries of privacy, safety, and public interest. The intersection of law, media, and family emotion created a landscape where tension and uncertainty were unavoidable. Every lead, no matter how small, was pursued. Officers rechecked timelines, compared witness statements, and revisited search areas. Every day without answers reinforced the reality that Kyron's disappearance was far from straightforward, and every search without results deepened the sense of despair. The community remained engaged, organizing vigils, prayer circles, and advocacy events. These gatherings reflected hope and solidarity, but they also underscored the public's impatience for answers. Posters of Kyron were everywhere, a constant reminder that a young boy was missing and that the story was far from over. For Kyron's family, the combination of investigation, media scrutiny, and legal complexities created an unrelenting pressure. Every moment, every update, every headline was a reminder of what they had lost and what remained unknown. Suspicion and uncertainty became daily companions, making hope and fear inseparable. Despite tireless efforts, law enforcement could not close the case. Every lead was analyzed, every witness interviewed, and every tip followed, yet answers were elusive. The investigation highlighted the challenges of piecing together events from incomplete information, conflicting accounts, and the intense scrutiny of both media and public opinion. Months passed, and yet the uncertainty persisted. The legal fallout continued to unfold alongside media attention, and the family's grief deepened. Kyron's disappearance was no longer just a local story, it had become a nationwide case, examined, dissected, and debated by experts, journalists, and the public. Still, the boy himself remained missing, and the lack of closure was unbearable. Years have passed since the disappearance of Kyron Horman, yet the questions remain. The boy who vanished from a school's science fair in 2010 has left a mark on his family, his community, and anyone who has followed his story. Today, we reflect on the aftermath, the memorials, the advocacy, the attempts to keep hope alive, and the enduring mystery that refuses to fade. In the weeks and months after Kyron vanished, the community rallied. Vigils were held, candles flickering in the evening breeze, as neighbors, friends, and strangers alike gathered to honor the boy who had disappeared without a trace. Each gathering was both a plea and a promise that Kyron would not be forgotten, that his family's pain would be shared, and that every possible effort to find him would continue. Posters and online campaigns ensured that Kyron's face remained visible to the public. Flyers appeared on lampposts, in local businesses, and on social media feeds, each one a reminder that a child was missing. The campaigns were not just about the search, they were about keeping a community vigilant, reminding everyone that even in the face of uncertainty, collective effort mattered. Neighbors became searchers in their own right. People who had never interacted before joined forces, sharing information, coordinating neighborhood watches, and keeping an eye out for any signs of Kyron. Every sighting was reported, every rumor investigated. Even years later, these efforts have not stopped. For some, the disappearance is a permanent presence, a reminder of both fragility and resilience. For Kyron's family, life has been irrevocably changed. Every anniversary, every birthday, is a bittersweet reminder of what was lost. The absence is not just physical, it permeates everyday life. Holidays, milestones, and celebrations are marked by the empty space he once filled. Grief is compounded by uncertainty. Without answers, mourning becomes a constant companion. The emotional toll on the family is profound. Parents who once navigated normal daily routines now navigate a life dominated by memory, hope, and fear. Counseling, support groups, and public advocacy have provided some relief, yet the absence of closure leaves wounds that never fully heal. Every day brings the same question: where is Kyron? Over the years, there have been moments that reignited hope. Tips from the public, renewed searches in previously unexamined areas, and media appeals have occasionally generated new leads. Investigators have revisited old evidence, re-interviewed witnesses, and employed modern techniques to attempt breakthroughs. Despite these efforts, the case remains unsolved, a puzzle with crucial pieces missing. Authorities have consistently reiterated their commitment to finding Kyron. Statements emphasize that the investigation remains active, that every tip is considered, and that resources are dedicated to resolving the case. Yet even with continued effort, frustration grows, both for investigators and for a public desperate for answers. The very nature of uncertainty makes closure almost impossible. Community-driven searches have never completely ended. Volunteers, old and new, continue to examine local areas, coordinate efforts, and keep Kyron's memory alive. In many ways, the search has become a communal ritual, a way to channel grief, hope, and determination. Each effort, no matter how small, is an act of solidarity with the family and a reminder that disappearance does not erase presence. Experts note that unresolved cases have profound psychological effects. Families endure chronic stress, anxiety, and emotional exhaustion. Communities experience a lingering sense of unease, as an unresolved disappearance challenges the notion of safety and normalcy. In Kyron's case, these effects are amplified by the media attention, the public scrutiny, and the extraordinary scale of the search that began so many years ago. Memorials have become a vital part of remembrance. Children who never knew Kyron learn about him through community events. Flowers, drawings, and letters are left in his honor. These acts of memory preserve not only the image of a missing child but also the collective hope that one day, answers will come. The family continues to navigate a delicate balance between grief and advocacy. Public appearances, interviews, and efforts to maintain awareness are exhausting yet necessary. Each interaction is both a plea for justice and a declaration that Kyron's story is far from forgotten. The past decade has been a series of small victories and persistent challenges, as the family struggles to hold on to hope without certainty. Years later, investigators have returned to the case armed with new technology. Forensic advances, digital records, and modern analytical methods offer the possibility of uncovering information that was previously inaccessible. Every new technique brings a renewed sense of potential, yet also the reminder that time has passed. Evidence can deteriorate, memories fade, and uncertainty only grows. The disappearance has shaped the community in profound ways. Neighborhoods remain vigilant. Schools review safety protocols. Parents share stories to educate others about vigilance and awareness. Kyron's absence has become a lesson in both caution and compassion, a reminder that safety cannot be taken for granted and that communities must act collectively in the face of tragedy. Yet despite every effort, every vigil, every search, the truth remains elusive. Kyron's disappearance continues to leave questions unanswered, and the absence of resolution creates a tension that lingers in homes, classrooms, and streets across Oregon. The mystery is not only about a missing child, it is about the fragile line between hope and despair, certainty and doubt. The lasting impact on the family is immeasurable. Every day is a test of resilience, every moment a reminder of what was lost. Memories of Kyron are preserved in photographs, school projects, and stories, but the fundamental question, where he is, what happened to him, remains unanswered. Life continues, yet it is defined by an absence that cannot be filled. For the community, the disappearance serves as a call to vigilance and compassion. People are reminded of the fragility of everyday life, the importance of looking out for one another, and the power of collective action. Vigils, memorials, and advocacy are both acts of remembrance and acts of hope, a way to keep a story alive until answers are found. Kyron Horman's disappearance is more than a cold case. It is a story of endurance, of love, and of an unrelenting search for answers. It is a reminder that the effects of such tragedies ripple far beyond the immediate family, touching communities, investigators, and even strangers who follow the story with empathy and concern. As we conclude this series, one truth remains clear: the mystery of Kyron Horman endures. His family's weight is endless, their hope unwavering, and the need for awareness and action remains as strong today as it did on that first day. The case is unresolved, the questions remain, and the story continues. For more true crime stories, updates on cold cases, and in-depth investigations, make sure to follow this channel. We bring the most compelling mysteries directly to you, keeping these stories alive and ensuring that voices like Kyron's are never forgotten.